I didn't forget mine, but I left it home 'cause I looked at it and it was only like 8% charged.
What's my
This one.
word for Apple?
Anyways, what's the deal on these little bottles of water?
I guess. Didn't you see on the news all that floating down there in Branson? Well, let's call this meeting to order. Notice of an open work session of the City Council of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, May 2nd, 2017. Mr. Eric.
Thank you, sir. Tonight's work session is on the topic of the Armor Road Complete Streets Project. And to introduce the discussion, I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Thank you. Good evening. So let me back up a little bit and remind you about the purpose of this project. So this project is being funded by Planning Sustainable Places grant funds from the Mid-America Regional Council. And our goal was to take a look at Armor Road from Burlington to Ozark, where Armor Road transitions to Highway 210 and MoDOT right-of-way, and to see what we could do to make improvements over the long term to Armor Road. We have, great plan for Burlington and for its future, making improvements there. And our master plan, some of the things people said about Armor Road was that it's a real barrier between our residential neighborhoods and destinations on the south side of Armor Road, keeps people from walking what might be a short walk from, where they live to something fun to do like Chicken and Pickle, because Armor Road's not easy or enjoyable to cross. And, long term, we also want to look at how we can better connect people who are walking and biking using Armor Road. The traffic impact study and the traffic modeling that we had to do for our Armor Road redevelopment area found that we have excess capacity on Armor Road. So what could we do with that? So we have hired WSP Parsons Brinkerhoff to work with us on this project through Mark's Planning Sustainable Places program. And this was a first step in talking to people here in North Kansas City about what they like, what they don't like. We had a great advisory group meeting, talked to some of the park board today, talked to various business owners and residents. And so Jennifer Pangborn and Jimena Atterbury are here from WSP Parsons Brinkerhoff to give you the overview and to get more feedback from you as part of this project. So I will turn it over to Jennifer.
All right. Thank you so much for allowing us to come in tonight. So I will quickly just say, here is the agenda that we're going to talk about today real quickly. Sarah already gave an introduction. Please feel free to ask any questions throughout if you have any on what you see on the screen or anything that I say, because we'd love to get your input. So quickly, we'll go through just the goal of tonight and what we're hoping to walk away with. Go through the existing conditions that we heard from our work sessions the last couple days. Just briefly cover the traffic study, and then we had a survey that went out, and we got some good feedback on that, and then next steps in moving forward. So real quickly, the goal tonight is to just update you on the project and what we've heard through the last couple of days, and then to get a direction on what you want to be included in this plan, and then what you would be comfortable with from an investment standpoint. So just real quickly, for anybody who hasn't heard about Complete Streets, this is just looking at our streets and our corridors and our downtowns as places for people. Looking at all modes of transportation, whether people are using buses, they're walking, using bikes, and planning for places with all of those modes. Making sure that we're looking at economics, economical impacts, aesthetics, and livability as well. And why we do this, why this has really become important is because what we've heard through downtown, similar to yours throughout the country, is that we need to think about people in our places. We need to have that vision. We need to balance everybody's needs, enhance the quality of life, consider economics and social benefit, and really look at comprehensive decision making. So jumping into Armor Road, we really heard three things in these, we heard a lot of information in these three categories: land use and some of the amenities along the roadway, environmental and sustainable impacts, as well as transportation impacts or existing conditions. So from a land use standpoint, we heard from a lot of people that Armor Road they really felt was in 3 different segments. The downtown area, which was much more walkable, and people felt, you know, it was a destination, even outside of North Kansas City. This transition phase between about Fayette and Iron, if we heard that right, and then the commercial development, which is east of Iron, and that, you know, the lanes go along with that. So in the downtown, you have a 3-lane cross-section, and on the east end, you have, in the commercial area, 7-lane cross-section of tribal lanes. There's a lot of unique destinations downtown. People were really excited when they talked about downtown North Kansas City. There's low vacancy, that a lot of people felt really good about that. Somebody pointed out that there's 17 plus restaurants in downtown. It was just something interesting. A lot of people said that there's decent lighting in downtown, that they felt safe walking there, but when you got further to the east towards the interstate, that there wasn't that walk or lighting for pedestrians as they would walk along the sidewalks. People said that there's one park along the corridor, and that was a good destination to walk to. The others said they identified that there could be some future development sites along the corridor, as well as the parking perception and lack of parking in the downtown. Any questions on land use or anything commented here?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
About the transition, you were talking about the walking and the sidewalks and the lighting toward, going toward the interstate. And that's something that maybe we would want to look into with having our development going on the east side of Armour and I-35. Has that, development been factored into kind of your plan here of what you'd like to do?
From
The
a
One North development? I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Didn't
it.
go down that far. They only went to Ozark.
It went to Ozark? Okay,
That's what they said at the beginning.
okay. Never mind, thank you.
Well, if I can say something real quick, I'm the council liaison on this committee, and the question did come up this morning of, do we look down that way, and when do we do that? And so definitely, I think they had that in mind, and I think the dividing line is really what's MoDOT involved in and what they aren't. And so when you go to Ozark, from downtown to Ozark, they don't need to be a part of that process. But once you go on the other side of Ozark, they do. And so I think it could potentially be a 2-phase process as we get that development up and running.
I just think it's something that, granted, I don't know how we're gonna work with MoDOT or what have you, but if that development gets up and going and we talked about walkability,
Yeah.
so.
Definitely think that's a future issue, yeah.
Right, and for this project, we're specifically stopping at Ozark because then we do have to involve MoDOT. And so we're trying to start with the easier project, since we don't have to involve them. We are considering the walkability issues that you mentioned with respect to the development itself. So this first phase of street construction, we've talked a lot about Taney and Mill Street. We actually are extending the sidewalk along Armour all the way back to the east to Ozark to fill in some missing gaps as we do this first phase of street construction. And as we talked this morning in the advisory group meeting, if you decide you want us to, after this project is over, take a look at the remainder of Armour Road, we could definitely do that, but it would need to be a follow-up because the scope for this project was set by our grant.
Do you have any, down here on Armour Road, we've got a lot of businesses that are just businesses. They don't create, not like a restaurant or anything else. Have we got any plans of trying to figure out a way to bring in more retail, or?
That's not really part of this project, but the master plan does discuss that a little bit.
All right. Just moving on, the environmental was something else that was discussed. When we look at complete streets, we're looking at how can we make the places more sustainable or fit their surroundings. We heard tree coverage is good downtown. We did hear that the tree leaves sometimes block the stormwater drains. and that some of the lighting is hidden in the trees when they are full of green leaves, but that people really liked the shade as they walk downtown, and that's a great amenity that you guys have. A lot of people said that they'd like to see more trees to the east of there, so that there's just not as many along the roadway. And then just that it's important to keep in mind that North Kansas City is very flat, and that all of the stormwater needs to be pumped out when we're talking about any type of improvements. And then getting into transportation. So looking at the transit system, there are bus stops along Armour Road. Some of them are not ADA accessible. KCATA is going to give us the ridership information, but they said that right now ridership is generally low in North Kansas City. Some of their bus sizes, because of how long the buses, have some operational issues, but that they are really happy with how the city has worked with them to provide operations here. They also said that they have an internal reduced rate for North Kansas City. So if you get in North Kansas City and you stay in the city, you have a reduced rate, which they really like. And then it was just noted that there was a lack of amenities at some of the transit stops.
I think ridership on Burlington is good, right? It's ridership on Armour that really
On Armour.
is lacking, I guess.
Yes, and they said that the stops on Burlington and Armour are some of their heaviest stops.
I take the bus on Armour Road, and there at least are 3 or 4 on the route that I ride that catch the bus at various spots along Armour Road. Now, some of them probably aren't ADA accessible. However, just to let you know that we have a lot of older people here that do take the bus, and you know, if they move bus stops or they take bus stops out, that's a concern to me. For the fact of accessibility, if you want more people to ride the bus, need to have convenient stops for them to get on at. So just kind of a fair warning there that, you know, we talked before with the KCATA about it states in their contract that any bus stops that are removed or changed or anything have to be signed off on by the city.
Okay. And we really are not looking at removing any bus stops. Just, I guess I should make that clear that we're just looking at how can we enhance those
Okay,
bus
good.
stops and ridership.
That would be good.
Definitely a move in a positive direction.
Yes.
And to enhance ridership.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Looking at bikes, one of the big focuses that we're looking at, it's really exciting that Bike Share is coming to the city. There's one going in along Armour Road near the YMCA. There's currently Sharrows on Swift, and I'll explain the map in just a second. Soon to be along 3 other routes that impact Armour Road. The biking community felt that some of the speeds on Armour reduced the bike usage, especially further to the east, just because of the larger width of the roadway, and that there's also a lack of bike racks. This map on the bottom, this is pulled from Strava Heat Map, which is kind of like a Fitbit or something that people use when they exercise, and it maps where they go. So this is a really unique tool that we can use to map where bicycles and people that are biking use roadways, and it shows how many people are using Swift. And this is a daily average, so it's kind of exciting to see the number of people that are using Howell and Swift currently.
This is what users actually upload, and then you can download this data and get aggregate data
They don't even upload it; it just automatically goes from their
from their
Strava right
their
online.
device or something.
Mhm.
Huh, that's very interesting.
It's for runners and bikers. This is the biking information, and so you can see anywhere in the United States where they go, and it's free information.
Oh, super cool.
It's amazing to see how the amount of biking has increased over the 2014 to 2015.
Yeah.
And people are using Armour Road, even though we hear that it's not very bike friendly.
I do. I just go on the sidewalk, which is sure
Is
against
there
city
any-
ordinances.
Is there any biking over on Burlington?
Oh, yes. I mean, Swift and Howell are our most biked routes today. But there are people who bike on Burlington. That's the far left, those 2 green lines, that's Burlington. And a shocking number of people who bike on Armour underneath the interstate. But it's increased quite a bit in the last few years, just looking at their data over time.
Are you gonna get a bike?
I had one.
Oh.
Somebody stole it.
All right, talking about pedestrians or people walking, there's people overall felt that there's a lot of good crosswalks in the city, especially the downtown. There's lots of foot traffic. The business community really shared that they appreciate that, they like that, they want to keep supporting that. There are no safe or marked crosswalk facilities east of Lynn Street, and there is a transit stop right near Ozark that people play Frogger across the street. There's the pedestrian push buttons along the roadway sometimes seem to not work, but we're looking into that. And then sometimes the ADA ramps, people said they didn't always align with the crosswalk, and that was a concern. But most people felt that walking downtown was a really good experience. And lastly, cars from a transportation standpoint. Like I said, we have an interesting cross-section that fits those three zones. The 3-lane section downtown, where you have on-street parking, and then transitioning to the 7 lanes out near the interstate. Overall, decent traffic operations during most hours, some peak hour traffic and queuing congestion noted. The signal timing aligns with the demand that we see out there from preliminary traffic analyses. People noted that sometimes cars circulate downtown when they're looking for parking, and that there is a lack of wayfinding signs for some of that parking, as a general comment. Any other comments on cars or pedestrians? And just real quickly, how some of the information we got from a traffic standpoint, there was a traffic study completed by the city in 2016. It was between Ozark and Fayette to look at what capacity was out on the roadway compared to how much usage is there. The findings is that they looked at capacity, they determined that there's excess capacity, and that we could look at reallocating some of the space in that area, in that zone, to remove a lane and look at on-street bike lanes or bike facilities and still have acceptable operations. We had an online survey. I hope some of you got to take it, and if you didn't, we still have it open for anyone to give some input. 37 individuals took it, ranging from our steering committee as well as some of the business owners downtown and residents, and it is still open, so we'll share that link.
So do you know how long you are going to keep that open? I just have been gone and I haven't forwarded it yet and encouraged people to take it, so I want to do that.
It'll be up for at least another week.
Okay.
At a certain point, we will take it down because we'll have new things to ask people.
Okay.
Probably.
What's
but-
considered a sample, a proper sample on something like that?
Well, we can't consider this a scientific sample because it's not distributed that way. You have to select your random sample to do that. This is really it's an opinion poll
informational
to get a sense of the community. So it's
Okay.
it's not scientific though.
So one of the first questions we asked is talking about the vision. So the ultimate vision for Armour Road between Burlington and Ozark is a corridor that serves all users, incorporates sustainable measures, and is economically stable. We had some revisions to this from the input that we received to talk about safety, economically vibrant instead of stable, and then that we're really making sure we're promoting pedestrians and bicycle traffic. This is the survey result for looking at what are the most important goals, and we look along this corridor, and it was a pretty high percentage that identified safety as number one. Then looking at economic development and access for all ages and users, and lastly, connectivity.
Connectivity is connection to other parts of the city. Is that what's viewed as connectivity?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. I apologize. I updated the survey, but I did not update the percentages on the bottom bullets. If they don't match the table, I apologize. We asked a question about how people felt about parking downtown. Is there too little, just right, or too much? 60% said there wasn't enough. 40% said there was just enough, and no one said there was too much. We asked how many people would support on-street bike lanes, and 84% of people said that, or respondents said that they would support some type of bike lanes on Armour east of Fayette if operations was still, or traffic operations was still acceptable. And then this was just an open-ended question asking people what other things they would like to see along Armour Road that we could consider throughout our study. We heard bike stations, bike share, more restaurants, parks, better lighting, transit stops, and seating as some of the high responses. Is there anything that people would like to add to that? This is a good question. Maybe anybody that took the survey.
On the traffic, so the traffic study did say that with reducing a lane each way, it would still be enough to sustain traffic flow without having congestion? Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
Yes, yes. And we're going to do some more analysis on that as well as we really look into what that bike lane or bike facility could look like.
You know, I try to envision that from, east of Least Iron on Armour, that number one concern, safety. I mean, that's like the Wild West between that and past the interstate. Sometimes my wife and I sit there in Taco Bell and bet if people walking across the street are going to make it or not. I just, surely engineers know, they know more than I do. I'm trying to envision in my head a lane for bikes. Sometimes it scares you just driving down that part of Armour. But the traffic and all. But that's just my inability to envision something, I guess. I don't mind. I like the bike routes. Not that I'm going to get my bike out there on it, But, and if you ever did think about east of Ozark, the walkway we have now, the sidewalk we have now going down, when MoDOT redid the bridge, I think they redid that bridge, there's standing water under there, and if a car comes by while you're walking on that sidewalk, you're going to get your daily shower there. And the water does not drain away. So you might want to keep that in mind in your future plans. I don't know if they can do something to make it drain or not, but it doesn't.
And we are going to show what the bike facility could look like, or just some other, just to answer your first comments.
Your question was about, would you add anything to this list? And I think based on the mayor's comment before, and I know this isn't, of course, up to the committee, but retail, if people want more restaurants, I have heard that from other people as well, that they want to see more retail.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But the thing about it is, you're gonna have to come up with more parking.
Yes, more parking and more walkability. If you can park and get out and walk and roam the streets, then more retail shops make sense, because then you eat lunch and you shop and you go back to your car.
Yeah, I think retail is one of the great missing features of North Kansas City. I can remember when they had lots of little shops and stores and places like that, and it just sort of vanished. Just like the shopping malls have changed their perspectives about how they do things. And, I live in a senior complex, and it's quite a ways from Armour. But I'm always asked, well, when are we going to put a store in here where, better than the Dollar General, for example, where I can go buy a pair of shoes or, some clothing of some type or things like along that line without getting in a car or taking a bus and going to Antioch or wherever they go. Northtown, it would be wonderful if we had something like that down here, a couple of small. Of course, One North might provide something. We don't know exactly for sure. But that's not Armour Road.
Well, there's one other thing down there at Fayette and Armour Road. There was two businesses that went in there. Well, one went in. I never even heard it, nobody ever said anything, who it was. There was no communication. And now across the street, there's some kind of a furniture place or something going up.
Yeah, Tyler Kingston,
Yeah.
is that what you're talking about?
You know, and how do we get that information out to the people that,
There was a nice article in the Kansas City Star about Tyler Kingston just
Yeah.
last weekend, I think.
And they moved here from someplace else,
Yep.
Crossroads maybe, or downtown Crossroads. Yeah, so I met them on Snake Saturday, and that's how I just kind of stumbled upon that little store. But the interesting thing about retail these days is I remember as a kid, you know, all the retail shops we used to have. My family used to come down here and shop. You know, now it's like retail's a little different. You know, you buy so much online, so Tyler Kingston, not only do they have the storefront, you know, here, but they also sell on Etsy and other, you know, online type of places. So it's like they have to supplement their business in other ways. So it's just kind of interesting. It's never going to be like it used to be exactly, but if we can get maybe some more retail in the future that would fit, you know, down here, I think that would be great. That's an example. I hope they make it, you know.
Yeah.
Fred?
I agree. I think it'd be great to have more retail stores. And I have people asking for that, for more retail stores. I think really a problem, if you go back and look in the 70s and 80s and compare it to today, problem of these small retail stores, even the specialty shops, in two words, one is Walmart and the other is Amazon. And you know, a retailer, someone will go in there if they can make a profit. If they can't make a profit, they're not going to go in there. That's capitalism. So that's our problem.
There's areas in Kansas City, you know, that have small shops. You out there on 63rd Street and Westport, areas like that. There's a lot of, if you're smart and you're a niche marketer, you can find what people need and establish a small business. Look at that dime store that's been out there for 100 years. That's a good example. If a businessman is smart, he can figure it, or she can figure out a way to make a buck.
Well, I think as a city, if we can get people walking and biking, then we can create more opportunities for those businesses. So I think we can help build an environment that they want to be and where they have traffic flow, which then they're more likely to sell. You look at the areas like Brookside and even Crossroads, and those are areas people get out and walk. Well, when they walk, they buy.
I was even talking with someone before I came up here, and having more places, restaurants on Armour, and seeing people outside, like you said, doing stuff, sitting outside eating. You know, it's going to keep, and as a snowball effect, a little bit of kind of seeing just.
Well, if you get everybody to ride bikes, it'd help the parking situation.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah. And you could have a lot of bike repair shops.
There you go.
We got one.
Yeah, we do. We do have one.
All right, we asked a question, just to identify where other people would like to see bike share. Swift and Armour near the YMCA, which one's going in near Dag Park and in front of, some of the other major businesses, that aren't there along Armour Road. And then, what major destinations are important to the community that this project could also serve? And these were the top 5 results that were identified. So breweries, restaurants, parks, YMCA, and library.
Breweries were higher than the libraries.
They just keep climbing.
We asked people, and these next 2 slides go together, so I'll kind of toggle back and forth so you can see. This was a question asking people, where do they cross Armour Road right now? And a lot of people identified, you know, further downtown on the west end. And the next question, and again, I'll toggle back and forth, was where do you want to cross Armour Road? And this was really interesting to show how many people would like to cross further on the east, where there aren't necessarily any crosswalks, or people don't feel safe. And so just seeing where people are crossing and where they'd like to cross was really interesting. And then this was just some of the summarized input that we got. So some of the ideas that people shared, especially today during our steering committee, we had the opportunity to go walk the corridor with some individuals and really be out on the roadway and taking some notes. And this was some of the synthesized information. A lot of people love Armor Road. They love the downtown area, and they want more of an identity or a character along the length of this corridor. Like I said, 84% of people want some type of bike facility or support that idea, some type of protected bike lanes because of the speeds, as well as connecting in with the other sharrows or bike lanes and facilities that are in the city. And it was brought up when we were out during the walking tour that some people considered or think that we should look at bike lanes through downtown. There's an opportunity for public art partnerships. KCATA brought that up, as well as a lot of people said that they would love to see that incorporated into some type of walking along Armor Road. That we need to continue to support pedestrian and traffic for businesses, like was already mentioned just now. Enhance wayfinding for all modes, so that people know maybe how far it is to walk somewhere, or even how far it is to drive, or how far to a public parking space. And then it's a 2-block walk to downtown. So some of that wayfinding information. We heard that people would love to see downtown extended further east because they love it so much. And then more outdoor seating and amenities for people. And those were some of the top things. And I'd love to get your opinions. You've already given us a couple on some other ideas that you may have for us to look at along Armor Road.
As part of this, are you looking at gateway signage to the east as well, similar to the west, or?
No, we've done that. So the gateway signage plan is pretty established, and so
Okay.
we didn't ask them to look at that.
I would
I'd be
just
happy
add
to get
the-
you a copy of that.
I would just add to the more outdoor seating, I heard two things this morning. One was outdoor seating, like benches and things, so people could sit out. And the other I heard was some patio seating for restaurants, or a coffee shop or something like that. So you could go and actually sit outside and have lunch or have dinner and be in that environment in the afternoon, in the evening.
Yeah, I think safety again comes to my mind on biking, because I do have a bike, and I do ride it once in a while. But downtown, the way we park downtown, the nose-in parking, that's got to be dangerous for bikers when we start backing out of those slots. It's bad enough trying to back out of them and see around all the SUVs coming down, and see other cars coming down the road. Does that factor in? I don't see how Armor, like downtown, could where the bike would fit in. I'm not sure.
Yes, we are going to look at a concept that was laid out in our meeting this morning, where we could put the bike lanes up against the sidewalks and narrow some of the lanes. We're going to look at it just to determine if it fits in that space and if that aligns with our goals and everything. But we're considering that because it was an idea that was thrown out.
You might want to think, I don't know, maybe it's crazy, but I just thought of it. Is perhaps have that bike lane go around that section of downtown, take it to 18th Street, and then bring it back in right here in front of City Hall. A detour type thing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And, one thing to add to that, because this was a big topic this morning, is the biking. How do you encourage biking, but yet you don't, if you're going to have patio seating, people don't feel comfortable biking on the street, they're going to bike on the sidewalk, you're going to go right through, someone's dinner when you're biking downtown Armor. So we talked about that, how do you route the people who are going around, how do you route them around? But then you also want to create a destination for people who want to go there. So maybe you have bike stations, where you actually have not just one rack, but you have a designated, here's where you park your bike, almost like they do on colleges, maybe not to that big extent. But when you go to a college, here's where you park your bike, and then you get up and you walk and you go to the places you want to walk. So maybe we need to think in that way, that we can't have everything, right? We can't have biking and walking and cars and, everything, so we have to figure out what we want.
Have we looked at other cities' models for things like this, cities that have had bikes for X number of years or whatever? I mean, bikes and cars have coexisted for years in Europe. However, we do have a different culture, a different atmosphere over here, but they've got this public seating, and they got the restaurants, and they got the bikes. I think you go through a period where originally you're gonna have accidents, kerfuffles, as Judge Judy says, and other types of problems, but that's hopefully will iron itself out as we grow the bicycle business and figure out how all that's gonna work.
Yeah, it's a great comment. We are going to look at some other cities and best practices as well as some of the new guidelines when we start looking at some of the options that were identified today. So absolutely looking at other cities.
The thing that bothers me is we're not in Florida, where we can ride our bicycles 12 months out of the year. And sometimes I wonder if we're worrying too much about the bicycles. And, I mean, let's face it, we drive cars, most of us do. And if you're gonna make it difficult to go downtown, then people aren't gonna wanna drive downtown, you know?
Well, we don't want to make it difficult to go downtown, but we also know that we have residents who don't, we know that we have some residents who are car-free households, or who maybe have one car, and, you know, so there are people who are here during the day who don't have a car. And we also know that there are some people who will bike 12 months a year, and God bless them. I wouldn't want to be one, but there are some of those. So part of our goal is to, you know, be complete streets for all the different types of users. Frankly, one of my goals is that research shows that places that are more pedestrian friendly and bicycle friendly hold their property values better and have more economic activity in those areas. So, I mean, from a community development point of view, we want to make some of these improvements to support the retail and the restaurants and all of the economic activity we want to have downtown. And this is one way for us to continue to do that. But you're right, we don't want to make it difficult to go downtown. We want to make it easier for cars and the bikes and the people who are walking or using the bus.
Well, it's definitely a work in progress. I mean, it's not gonna be what's the average age of a citizen here in North Kansas City? About 45 or something
Actually,
like that?
I can answer that question with data. It was 45, at 44.7, I think, in the 2010
Or we
census.
could say 45.
But the 2015 five-year sample from the American Community Survey shows that our average age, or median age, has fallen to 36.6.
Yeah.
We've had an incredible turnover of millennials moving in to, and if you look at all of our residential neighborhoods, millennials are the largest generational group in each of them, even as we have been building senior apartments at the Gardens.
Well, as the number of City View type apartments go up too, we're gonna have people that'll even lower because I don't know what their minimum age is, but I bet it's not more than 30.
And we've been having babies.
Who has?
I haven't, but some people have been having babies.
Lord help us.
Little levity doesn't hurt any.
All right. And then just to show you some of the notes that we took over the last couple days, these are some of the maps along the corridor. This is in the downtown area. Lots of information. We got lots of input. Again, people are really passionate about downtown, and it showed. So we're going to continue to consolidate and use some of this information for our analysis. I apologize, you can't read all these little Post-its. And then this is the eastern side of the corridor. Again, lots of good information that we're taking into account. And then, to be conscientious of time, I wanted to show some ideas of what a protected bike lane could look like, just because it is hard to understand what this looks like since we don't have a lot of these in the United States. So there's different ways to look at them. Usually we're looking at protected bike lanes when we have speeds on the travelway over 30 miles per hour. So this would be, similar to what's out on Armour Road if we were to take a lane. So I'm going to show you as we scroll through these pictures, the paint is maybe a short-term operations and implementation. You can paint something real quickly, see how it works, make any adjustments. Paint's much cheaper, and then you can go into what could that barrier look like in protection. The more protection you get, the more comfortable that most people feel riding in something like that. So that's something that we keep in mind. The little icons on the left talk about, like I said, the protection level, the installation cost, looking at how much it would cost to implement something like this, and then some of the durability and aesthetics, some of the other ratings that we look at when we look at protected bike lanes. The bottom one is the delineator posts. We've just implemented some of those on a couple of my projects. They work really well. It's starting to raise that awareness for bikers, as well as a cheap implementation.
Are those flexible?
They are.
They move,
Mhm,
right? When,
mhm.
if you would hit them, you could drive right over them and
You
then
can
pop
drive
back
right
up.
over them. Yes.
after you-
Yes. Yes. So we implemented those in an opportunity where we were trying to figure out how much room we needed at some of the breaks and access along the bikeway, so that if a lot of people were hitting them, maybe we needed to look at where we could put that long-term barrier. So I have a lot of these pictures, so I apologize. These are just two shorter term little, well, turtle bumps and large bumps. Something just, again, to delineate that space. This is where we actually use the end of parking curb, so it's a pin down parking curb that they put along that buffer, as well as with the raised vertical delineators. This is something very doable for something like Armour Road. We have these linear barriers. This is more up in Vancouver and Montreal. Jersey barriers, this is something becoming more popular when we're talking about protected bike lanes in semi-urban areas, because it really feels like a safe space when you have that concrete barrier next to you. And then looking at taking that barrier one step further and making it some type of landscape planter opportunity. Bollards is another example. Again, it feels very safe to be next to that bollard. And then, or just a simple cast-in-place concrete curb, which can be easily pinned down and from a maintenance standpoint is relatively easy. This picture also shows some of the green paint that can be used at intersections to hit on some of the safety conversations that was brought up. And then lastly, so we changed the vision just slightly from all of the input that we got. We wanted to make sure that we were addressing some of the things that we heard today and that we got out of the survey. So the vision for this project, the ultimate vision for Armour Road between Burlington and Ozark is a corridor that is safe, serves all users, incorporates sustainable measures, is visually appealing, and is economically vibrant. Does anybody have any comments on that? No? And then the top goals, like I said, are safety, economic development, access for all ages and users, and connectivity. So lastly, our next steps as we move into our analysis and leaving note some of the alternatives and concepts that we're going to be looking at from what we heard. We'll be bringing some of that information back. We're hoping to do a community meeting on June 13th here at City Hall, right? And that'll be a really good opportunity to get some more feedback from the community and from all of you, and you'll get an invitation.
What time is the meeting?
We'll probably do this as a 4 to 6:30, like we've done a lot of our community meetings for the master planner for Burlington.
All right, so any other comments or questions from anyone?
I like the pictures, showed the lanes and the different ways to provide safety. Of course, I like the poles up a little, you know, something the drivers can see easily.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they look nice. And the other ones did too. I just like those best.
Well, if anybody else? Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Thank you.